Welcome, everyone. Thank you for stopping by. I have one of my favorite just voices in really the sports world, but definitely college football. Brag a little bit on myself. I picked y'all show up kind of Jake Crain, by the way, Dailywire, Crain & Co. I picked y'all show up when it first started. I remember I was just starting out law school. It's like my 1L year. And at the time it was like, I think I remember one of the big reasons why you all started your show was you wanted just sports talk instead of turning on the show at TV every day and hearing
For
a bunch
sure.
of, it seemed like there was just vague politics and all this stuff just thrown into every sports show. And what I liked about y'all's was obviously y'all know what you're talking about, but there was a big push on getting something going where you were getting actual sports content and not getting just
Yeah.
bombasted by politics. I,
Mhm.
I was curious if you're okay sharing kind of how did you start out in the media? I know you coached,
Yeah.
and you had a long kind of route to where you're at now. How did that start,
Mhm.
and then how did you end up with the Daily Wire and what you're doing currently?
Yeah. Well, it's first off, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm doing the Oklahoma circuit this week, and it
yeah,
makes sense with obviously the Red River Shootout. It's funny. We started off when I did the J Boy show. I coached college football for 10 years, 6 at the Division I level, and was actually coaching in Montana, and in the process of interviewing to become the defensive coordinator up there, and which had been the biggest job that I had yet on the college level. And when COVID hit, and it was kind of during that weird time where nobody knew what was going on, so like everybody was like, just kind of go home, and it worked out because we were back home. You don't get a lot of time off coaching, especially at that level. But I was back home down here in the South from Montana, and man, our head coach couldn't tell us when we were going to come back. So that was, a lot of my recruiting was done. I had the guys, the early signing period. That was kind of the beginning of that.
mm,
So I was just trying to waste time. So I was like, man, I'll just go buy like a $50 mic. So I'm not a, technology guy by any stretch of the imagination. So just getting it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, I was like, look, I'm just going to talk ball, what I think about, some things that are going on, and how things really work kind of behind the scenes without putting anybody on blast. And then it just really kind of blew up from the start to the point where I started getting people reaching out for advertisements, and I started having like companies reach out like, hey, we'd love to have your show with our company. And at first I thought it was a joke. I thought it was like players of mine that were just messing with me, because I was getting calls from like California and all these places. And, I started to look at the amount of money that I could make compared to what I was making, and have more security, because it's one thing to depend on an 18 to 22-year-old to play well to keep your job. It's another thing to be able to
mm.
talk about it either way and keep your job. So I was like, you know what? I'm still young. I'll try this out for a little bit. And man, it just grew and grew and grew. And we ended up basically starting an LLC with the J Boy Show. It was just me on the mic. David Cohn, who you see now, was the camera guy, basically the production. He ran all the production. And then my brother was just a kind of a producer on the show. And then we ended up signing with the Volume and Colin Cowherd, and did a 6-month deal with them. And that's when I brought Conan Blaine on for the first time, and that blew up. So we're in the middle of renegotiating with them, and then Ben Shapiro called me. And
Wow.
I know you let off like, hey, you guys, didn't bring politics into sports, and now you go to the Daily Wire. Like,
Yeah.
I understand how that could cause some confusion, but if you ever watch our show, you'll understand, like, outside of the men and women sports thing, which, I don't even
Yeah.
think it's political. I think like 99% of people agree with that. And we made the movie Lady Ballers and all that. We don't talk politics because I don't care.
Mhm.
Not that I'm saying it's not important. I understand that, but you're not watching a sports show for me to tell you what I think about immigration. The only immigration I care about when we're on the show is the transfer portal.
Right.
And at the end of the day, that's because again, it's counterintuitive. I remember the days of Sports Center when I'd watch the reruns 3 times in a row on ESPN,
Mm.
and it was always about sports. And now it's gotten so political and so divisive that I was like, man, there's a lane. If you know what you're talking about, you're authentic, you're entertaining and have fun, because we're not just all serious all the time. I mean, hell, look at my brother's hair.
Right.
So we keep it out of it, and the Daily Wire lets us do that. Because again, I don't want to get in the weeds on what you think about this or what you think about that when it's outside of the sports world, really. So now, man, he ended up calling me. We got a better deal. Been at the Dailywire now for 4 years, and it's going fantastic. Our numbers have never been better. We're close to 200,000 subs, and I mean, we talk college football, we talk college basketball, we started talking college baseball last year. I actually played baseball in college, which is a lot of fun. And yeah, man, it's Crain and Company, and we have a good time. Put out a ton of content too. So we'll have we got an Oklahoma Texas preview that's out. It's pretty in depth, and no, man, just excited to do it. It's a lot less stressful, and I get to see my family, so it's a good deal because I grew up with a coach. He was never home, so.
Yeah, I was about to say your dad coached at. I know you said. I believe I heard you said he coached at Auburn.
Man, he coached at Auburn. He coached at Troy. He coached at TCU, South Alabama. I mean, he was an All-American at Auburn. Played in the NFL for the Packers. That's kind of the house I grew up in, and he was really never there. Because and it's even worse. It's even worse nowadays. Like, so I'm very fortunate. There are parts that I miss. I miss being around the guys and recruiting a guy and watching them grow. And, the games, there's nothing like the feeling of running out of the tunnel at Tennessee or at Mississippi State or San Diego State or these places. And that's the part I miss. But, I get to come home and see my 8-month-old every day and spend time with her and see my wife and be a part of their lives. So it's much more satisfying to me. And like I said at the top, if I coach DBs and special teams. If a corner blows a coverage, I don't have to worry about getting fired the next day. I can just talk about it.
Yeah, it's got to be less stressful for sure. I get that. My dad was he's a DC for like 30 years, and in my OU world, he's on a lot of our spaces and talks. And obviously, he coached at every level but the NFL, so he never made it. But he was at OU in the 90s, and then he had to make that decision. My mother was an attorney at the time, and she was always working.
Oh gosh, so nobody's home.
Yeah, and so he made the decision to go and do. He actually went to teach just grade school and ended up teaching PE with Sherry Cole, who was OU's women's basketball coach for decades. And it's kind of weird, but no, I totally get what you're saying. Wanted, I guess, talk about a game that I'm sure you haven't talked about at all this week with all the OU shows you've been on, but hopefully bring a little bit different perspective, because one thing that I really think is going to be important, OU Texas Red River Shootout, emphasis on the shootout,
100%,
it is special teams. And I know it might be a weird thing. We're going to talk about John Mateer and his thumb, and I don't think anyone's cared about a thumb more since like Caesars in the Coliseum.
Yeah, nobody's been more worried about a thumb since the Spy Kids movies.
It's which I get, but well, I guess we'll see game time if he's playing or not. But
I think he's playing. From from the people I know that I trust, I think he's playing.
Yeah, I think he is too, and it's weird. I guess I'll just side note here. It is weird. Like, for the first time ever, they're all inside for every practice. We're inside yesterday and Tuesday and Monday. They don't normally do that, and I don't know. I think part of me thinks it's like a whole deal where, are you doing it so that they think he's playing, or are you doing it so they don't see him if he is? I don't know. We'll get there. I want to get the special teams knocked out, because I know you're that's what you coach, right? Special teams and
DBs,
corners.
yeah.
And
Which
DBs,
people,
right?
It's insane. Like, if anything went wrong, it was probably my fault. That's what I used to say.
Yeah.
In the game in general.
So I want to talk to you about punting real quick.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of fans, whenever they watch punters, they just see that how far they're punting the ball. Like, he's averaging 55 yards, whatever. And Oklahoma has one of the best right now. He's SEC Special Teams Player of the Week, like week 2, I believe. He's really good. But for me, is it not more important if you're able to pin the ball, like placement, right? Like at the NFL level or elite level punters, isn't it more angles you're setting up? Are you able to pin them inside the 10 if you're short fielding or?
Yeah. Well, a lot of it depends on circumstance, right? Where you're at on the field. Obviously, how good your coverage team is, and then how good the returner is. If you're close to midfield, the odds of a return happening. That's why a lot of teams and defenses just go safe when, unless it's 4th and 15, something like that. Rarely ever would me on the other side of it on punt return try and set up a return when you're sky punting. That's what we call it. When you're punting to pin them down, it's called a sky punt. And obviously, distance is the key there. It's a lot like golf. You want to be able to not just hit the ball and have it spin back, but in case it does spin forward, not hit it too far to where it's going to go into the end zone. So yes, when you get into your regular punt, that's not a sky punt. That's where I used to tell my guys, hey, if maybe our coverage team wasn't, because I ran all type of punts. We ran shield. We ran, when I just started out, I worked for a guy at South Alabama named Tommy Perry, who was actually at Alabama. And that's when we ran a pro style punt, like you see in the NFL, the kickbacks, have the personal protector there, your wings, have your zone side, have your man side, full zone at this, that, or the other. But I love the ability in college to be able to run that shield punt, which is the spread out. I used to do multiple formations. I would rugby it as much as possible because it does change the launch point up. It makes it tougher to block. And we had a read built in where the punter could take off. But to answer your question, when you're depth punting or normal punting, I would say if we were facing a really, really good returner, I would rather you hit a 45-yard punt that gets fair caught than you hit a 60-yard punt that gets caught and the guy has 10 to 12 yards before anybody's getting close to make contact with him. I would take that over, punting it deep. And even if you tackle him back, you're giving him a chance because the punt returner just wants space. Like they actually love it. I always say that the only time I was ever happy to outkick my coverage is when I married my wife. So outside of that, it used to scare me to death. I'll never forget. We're playing at South Carolina. God, I'm trying to remember what year this is. And I had a punter, and I don't think he minds me calling him out. He was a great punter. His name is Brandon McKee. He's from Georgia. And we're actually punting. We weren't backed up, but his heels were on the goal line. And we had what we called yellow, which was our rugby punt out of the shield. And this is when Pharaoh Cooper was the returner at South Carolina. So all week, I'm like, God, we got to be smart. Brandon, be smart. He rolls out, and you can still see the clip. I think it even made SportsCenter. And he hits what we call a missile ball, which is, normal drop. You hit it, and instead of it going up and spiraling and wobbling, it spirals like you threw it, which means it's gaining depth. And when he hit it, I knew he clocked it, like he murdered it. But I'm like, oh, God, if Pharaoh Cooper catches this with 15 yards or 20 yards of space, he's going to take it back to the house. Brandon hit the ball so far that Pharaoh Cooper ended up fielding it in the opposite end zone. So just think about that for a second. The punter's heels are on the goal line. He rolls out. Now, we had a 3 to 5 step, depending on how much pressure, because I loved to be able to take time to get our guys down there if you didn't really force it fast, right? That kind of negates the whole thing and sets us up where he has to fair catch it, or you have a much better chance to down it because your gunners are down there. But Pharaoh Cooper literally fields it. It went over his head, bounced, went into their end zone. He fields it, makes one of our guys miss, and we tackle him at like the 8. So we pinned him inside the 10 from our own goal line. So that's like the only time I was ever like, oh, thank God, it worked out and we actually outkicked our coverage and it worked. But yeah, it's like golf. It depends on, are you on the tee box, right? Or are you 120 out with a pitching wedge and you want to leave it on leave it a little bit, deep to let it come back to the hole or leave yourself a putt uphill. Yeah, it's all circumstantial. That's why you got to have a lot of, I tell our guys, you got to have a lot of clubs in your bag.
Right. And I only bring up punting, and I know some people might wonder, why would you ever start off with special teams and punting? For me, in a game where two defenses are solid, and I still think Texas's defense is good, even though it looked like, Florida gave them problems running the ball. Oklahoma's obviously is for my money, I've always said, like, whenever people say I have the best defense in the country, I think if you can say that and it not make you cringe, and you can say, like, I wouldn't take any defense over Oklahoma's, at least what they've shown the first 5 games. And whether or not that means they're better than Ohio State or, any other defense, it's all moot to me because I think Oklahoma's good enough to win any game they're in defensively. For me, whenever two teams are good defensively and struggling offensively, like Oklahoma and Texas are, special team, when you're able to pin people deep in their own territory off punts or whatever it may be, that adds such an advantage to whatever team is capable of doing that it does become a weapon in and of itself. And when you look at like the game and both, like, whether it's Texas or let's go Texas offense, Oklahoma defense, where do you see Texas struggling or maybe having some success when you've watched Oklahoma play at least and seen how their defense has performed?
Well, I look, stats to me are like a trailer for a movie, right? They tell you a little bit about what's going. Well, nowadays the trailer is basically the daggum movie. It's so long, but they used to tell you snippets of the movie, like kind of what's expected, but it doesn't tell you everything. So you can't look too far in them. But there are some things you can look at, and I can tell you how good your side of the ball is by those things. And there's one that I don't know if a lot of Oklahoma fans have thought about. I'm sure if you talk to Teddy Lehman, he'll probably agree. When I look at your top tacklers and I don't see a defensive back, until the 6th guy, that means good stuff's happening in that front 7. So you got Kip Lewis, he's got 25. Sammy's got 21. David Stone's got 19. Heineke's got 18. Ween's got 15. McKenzie's got 15. Then you get to Peyton Bowen, who has 14. If one of your DBs, and I'm talking about like true DBs, nickel, it can mix a little bit. But if you have one of your true DBs leading your team in tackles or top 3 in your team in tackles, something is not going right a lot for you. That's not a great place to live. So when I look at Texas's ability, where are the weaknesses against Oklahoma? With the Texas offense that struggled to run the ball, Arch Manning's your leading rusher. That wasn't the plan, brother. I can promise you that. And that's gotten you in 3rd and longs and predictable passing downs. Then the defensive line's able to pin their ears back. And I think that's one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons that Texas has struggled to protect Arch is because you're living in 3rd and passing. And when you do that, there is no unpredictability about it. Yeah, you may throw a screen. Yeah, you may run a draw, but we'll retrace and rally to that and make the play. So to be honest with you, I think the biggest, and again, like I said on the other show I went on talking Oklahoma, it's crazy to say this because Steve Sarkisian is the offensive coordinator. I know he's the head coach, but he's the play caller at Texas. The biggest advantage in this game is Oklahoma's defense versus Texas's offense. I don't see a weakness in this Oklahoma defense. Like whether it's 3rd and 11 or it's 3rd and 1, they don't give up explosives. They don't tackle with their head too far over their feet. They really don't miss a lot of assignments. And if you're going to score on them, you're going to have to go on a marathon. They're not going to give up the sprint explosive. You're going to have to go 9, 10, 11, 12 plays. And what does that do? That increases your margin for error, therefore making it tougher. So, if I was Sark this week and looking at the film and I'm like, okay, we've struggled to run the ball. We have to have some sort of balance, some sort of unpredictability to stay ahead of the change. I would try and run the ball early just to see. He's going to do that, right? All the best play callers do. But once that doesn't work, you've got to supplement the run game if it's not working with that quick passing game. Now screens, bubble screens, check downs, swings, slants, hitches. And you may have to pitch a little bit backwards in this game. You may have to throw more on 1st down. You may have to throw on 2nd and 4, things like that. So you're not getting into these situations that we've seen Texas get in where you're in 3rd and 9 and me, you, and God knows you're throwing the ball. So you don't have to be John Madden or John Gruden to figure out that Texas doesn't have a lot of good things going offensively, and playing this defense isn't exactly a great recipe for an offensive renaissance.
And to your point, it's one of those games where fun stat for those listening. I want to say it's 24-1, the team that has outrushed the other in the last 25 OU Red River shootouts. 24-1 if you've got the team that outrushed the other. And for Oklahoma, also just a caveat to Arch's first start, it'd be John Mateer's start. So if he starts, I don't know if the stat matters as much. It doesn't because the ratio will be the same. But first time starting quarterbacks in the Red River since 1990 are 5-15-1 against counterparts who have previously started. So, I mean, again, that would be kind of moot if John Mateer is able to play. Let me switch now to Oklahoma on offense, because as much as I'd love to say I feel confident in what we're doing offensively, there is a little bit of we've had a guy at quarterback that's just been as good as any, and I think he plays, but assuming he doesn't right now for this first part, if you're Arbuckle or if you are on the defensive coordinator side, I always love to ask people that have done it at the level that you have, or like I talk about my dad a lot that he has, how you're going to challenge a kid that is. He obviously has played in it before, and he has better pieces around him now. But a Michael Hawkins who, although it was his first start, I always tell people it's different in a game than practice, because even though in practice you're going up against ones, they're not going to hit you. You're in a blue jersey. You're not worried about getting actually, any sort of punishment. But there is the Kent State game, he had some good throws. Then he tried to like Matthew Stafford everything. And I'm like, you don't need to do that. Just
started feeling it.
We got a guy named Giovanni Gibson, number 11, who I want you to keep an eye on for the game. 6'3" 6'2", 220 guy from Arkansas Pine Bluff transfer. freak athlete, was the talk of all the spring practice, was like, oh, this guy's going to be our best player, breaks his leg, he's back finally, and all that. He throws a hitch route, and Giovanni makes one of the greatest catches of the year on a 3-yard hitch because he throws it 4 yards inside. He fully extends out and gets his ab like almost cut in half by a tackler. And I'm like, Michael, just put it on him, you know? So, but when you're dealing with players like that, how are you attacking them? Like, what is your goal? Or if you're Arbuckle on the offensive coordinator side, what are you doing early to get them comfortable in the game?
Well, I'll start on the defensive side. You got to make them throw it to beat you. I think you got to do the same thing with Mateer. Now, Mateer's a better thrower than Hawkins Jr. is. I mean, and I think, I picked Mateer to win the Heisman for the season. So obviously I believe in his ability to throw the ball, not just in rhythm, in drop back stuff, but also in the chaos plays, right? Scramble drill when it breaks down. So if it is Hawkins Jr., you got to make him beat you with his arm. Now, what I find interesting is, Oklahoma's offensive line is better, but I don't think they've been great by any stretch of the imagination. So if you're Texas, I don't think stopping the runs, means you have to put a ton of guys in the box. I think maybe early in this game, you see if you can kind of go straight up with them a little bit and just stop them, with matching box, right? Like not making it too heavy, just playing with that even box. Now there'll be times, obviously, if they come out in 11 and 12, where you're able to condense the safety or mug the safety, as we talked about, and add those extra hats to the box. And obviously, you got to take the quarterback run into account. But again, on the Arbuckle side with Hawkins Jr., the thing that I used to struggle with the most is teams that ran power read, right? Teams that ran Q counter and Q power. And I'm talking out of 10 personnel at least. So a running back's in there. So not empty. Because that's truly how you get a hat on a hat, because I can bring a safety down, right? And you use the running back to block, you still have even money with me, because typically the quarterback doesn't block for the running back, right? Unless you played for Les Miles. So when the quarterback's not running the ball and the running back is, you're losing a hat with that safety. Well, if the quarterback is running and the running back is blocking, which happens, you're even. You have a hat for a hat, which means that if everybody locks up, obviously you're gone. If I'm Arbuckle, that would be a big part of my run game early. Now, I understand people saying, well, God, if Hawkins Jr. gets hurt, well, then what happens then if Mateer's not playing? Well, you can't play this game like that. You can't do that, because then what are you going to tell Michael Hawkins to drop back 35 times and maybe turn the ball over 2 or 3 times, which I think is, one of the best ways that Texas could win. Maybe one of the only ways, with how bad they're playing offensively and how good Oklahoma is defensively, that Texas can win. But there's a balance here that if you're Arbuckle, if it is Hawkins Jr., I don't want to be over conservative though, right? Because let's say a kick gets run back against you, or let's say that Wingo hits a big play, or Wisner's able to make a big play and you need to score. Well, if you got a matchup on the outside, whether it's with Deion Burks, whether it's with Gibson, whoever, you want to be able to exploit that if you like it. So I'm wondering early how he calls it. And a lot of times offensive play callers, they always say, we're going to do what we do. It doesn't matter this, that, and the other. No, that's not true. They know whether that other team's offense can score or not. And you will see that conservative button start to get hit a lot more if Texas comes out on offense and it's a tsunami on Arch Manning and they're not able to move the ball. Now, you're probably going to get a lot more runs. You're probably going to get a lot more safe passes, and then you may take a couple shots. So if you're Texas and it's Hawkins Jr., you've got to beat me with your arm. If you're Arbuckle and it's Hawkins Jr., there's a lot of different things that are going to go on that you're going to pay attention to that throughout this game will help you call it. But I really, really like that quarterback run with a hat on a hat early to keep you ahead of the chains as well. Because make no mistake, this is going to be a battle of who can get to 21 points.
Yeah. I think it's going to be low scoring. Unless some team has a big time special teams or maybe a pick six or something. I don't see either team really, from what I've seen so far. I wish I could, Oklahoma did really well against the Michigan front, and then they had injuries up front, and then if Fasusi gets injured, doesn't play much against Kent State. Derek Simmons had one of his worst games, our right tackle, who's been solid, a transfer from Western Carolina this year. But it's like if he's been solid, and then you struggle against a Kent State guy.
Well, great game. State, Great. You picked a great game to suck, because you can get away with it. I'd much rather you pick that game to be bad. Pick that one.
Right. And, Jay Knott had a little bit of a coming out party against Kent State. He looked like he was the first running back I've seen for OU that runs the second level with their head up. Tory Blaylock runs fast. He was part of like the 4x1 high school Texas team that set the national record or whatever. Super fast guy. But at that second level, and he's young. It just seems like he's a little bit can be like head down and let's just run over people. Blaylock more of Otts more of like a Le'Veon Bell, where he's maybe not out of the gate, just 0 to 100, but he's looking at where can I go and set up blocks and shades or whatever it is. So hopefully that can get going if you're on the Oklahoma side.
No, without a doubt. I mean, Ott's a guy you brought in and expected that explosive play, that home run ability. And look, we can talk about whether was it a punishment early in the year, was it an injury, this, that, or the other. At the end of the day, he got some scratch against Kent State. And look, a lot of people can look good against Kent State, but I've seen Jade Knott at Cal before. And Jade Knott's a guy that can make an edge disappear very, very quickly. If you let him get into his third and fourth step, he has elite level speed. I mean, borderline Olympic speed when he gets going. He's more of your side to side guy. I think Blaylock is more of your downhill guy, which I know Blaylock's fast, this, that, and the other. But when you look at the way they're built and kind of the way they're comfortable running with the ball, Jade Knott's a guy you love to toss the ball to. You love to give jet sweeps to. Not that he can't run, gap scheme stuff, but he's more of a zone runner, right? Like outside zone, being able to cut it back or log the end, reach the end, get around the edge. Blaylock can do that, not to the level Ott can, but if it's 4th and inches and the guy's got to put his head down and go get that money, first I'm giving it to Mateer and then I'm giving it to Blaylock.
Right. And I totally agree with you on both of those points. I want to talk just for a second about, and this is going to be crazy, I know, on an OU podcast about OU Texas, the Arch Manning. So I'm a natural contrarian by my nature. Like, I don't know why. It's one reason.
Well, you did say you went to law school.
Yeah, there we go. I jumped on the LeBron train back when I was like in elementary because everyone loved Kobe, and I just naturally was like, well, this guy in Cleveland looks pretty good. I'll just be a LeBron fan or whatever. But I was, whenever the Arch Manning this year is going to be the Heisman winner and he's going to be the number 1 draft pick, naturally I was like, what are we doing? Like people's whose opinion I respect playing Crain. People like Joe Klatt and them. What do you think went into, and then like I just juxtaposed that to what we saw yesterday, like that ridiculous article about him being a flop and just all this stuff was. Now I'm tweeting out stuff like that is. I mean, look, he didn't ask for all the hype. First off, you guys gave him that. He didn't ask to be born a Manning. Like a lot of this hate he's getting, I feel like has been media driven. He even said in the SEC media days, to his credit, like, I don't know why I played 2 games. Like maybe I should have some meaningful snaps where I've done things.
Yeah. Stop staring through my window at night.
Where do you think, just from the media perspective, really, where does that, is it all just, hey, we need to drive ratings and that's why it was hype? I mean, obviously Feinbaum became infamous with what he said, but.
I think for people that I know ball that came out and said it and that he was going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread, I think that was a trick. I think that was clickbait because they, like, not saying that Arch Manning wouldn't be good or that he couldn't be a good player this year, but I mean, some of these guys, Feinbaum said he's going to be the greatest thing since Tim Tebow. You didn't have enough to know that.
But Jay, just real quick to your point, Joe Klatt ranks him the 4th best player in college football in front of Ryan Williams. And I just what are we doing?
Again, I think Joel knows. And then I see Joe Klatt coming out talking about how preseason polls are worthless and it's not good. I'm like, dog, look what you did. What do you look in the mirror, man? Like, it's just, it's all a trick. That's why I like at Crain and Company. Look, not that we don't have hot takes or that, we don't get out there sometimes with some of our stuff, but there's reason and evidence for why we do. Like, there's no evidence to think that Arch Manning should be a top 5 player in college football this season. There was just none that you've seen so far, unless you think Louisiana Monroe is just this amazing team that nobody knows about. So I think a lot of it was trickery. Guys like Paul, and congrats to him. He's made a great career out of this. He doesn't know what he's looking at. He's just going to say the most out of bounds thing or off the wall thing because it's going to cause controversy. And sometimes you look up and it ends up being right. So as far as the people that know ball, I thought it was just clickbait, just rage bait. I mean, my brother, again, that's why me and his most heated argument was when we were doing our preseason player rankings that we did it draft style, and he drafted Arch Manning in the top 25. I'm like, dude, you just ruined the list. Like, you just ruined the list. And, he gassed him up. And that's why he looks like he's hanging out in Portland right now with the blonde hair that's going on. But no, man, it's not his fault. There's a lot of problems that Texas has. He hadn't been playing great. I'm not saying that,
No.
any of the stuff went out of his control, but to say he's already a flop, first off, if I ever take anything that the Athletic or New York Times seriously about sports, then, please just put me on the raft and push me off. But yeah, I mean, again, I think he's going to be fine. He shows you some things sometimes with his tools that you're like, okay, I can see where he's going a little bit, but like most young quarterbacks, they're going to struggle a little bit before they figure it out. And again, sometimes they never figure it out because it's really, really tough to do. So yeah, at this point, I mean, I can sit here and take a victory lap and this, that, or the other, but I'm as a competitor, I know Oklahoma fans won't like this, but I hope he figures it out. Right. Cause again, I think he's handled everything the right way.
Well, and I think one thing Oklahoma fans are walking themselves into in a trap is that they think he's just bad in every aspect. He does have athleticism. He saved them from having about 13 sacks. Florida having about 13 sacks just on pressure.
He was their only hope.
33 beats that Brooks, that left guard they brought in, the true freshman, on the touchdown to Wingo. The guy is right, and Arch moves in the pocket, makes a miss, and throws a touchdown. He does it again later.
And no run game.
And gets 37 yards. Right.
Yeah. And no run game. No, he kept him in it. Now, he wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it's hard to do it when everything lines up, let alone when it's kind of haywire.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, are you able to give your prediction, or have you?
Yeah,
you guys have already posted your
we already
show.
did our prediction show on Wednesday. So
what are you assuming Mateer plays or doesn't?
I think he plays.
Okay.
I 100% think he plays. Which, if you're an Oklahoma fan, you're like, oh no, how hurt is he really, even if he plays? Let me give you a hint. You don't play a quarterback with a hurt throwing hand if he can't play. That's not how it's not like a hamstring where you're like, well, his mobility is not going to be as great. It's his throwing hand. So like you can't, if he couldn't throw, you don't play him, right? That's kind of a specialist position with that. So I think he's going to play. I said I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think it's going to be really low-scoring. I've got Oklahoma 17-10 in this one. I actually think Oklahoma is up 17-3 going into the fourth quarter. Texas scores to make it 17-10. A little bit kind of like it was in the Florida game when Texas scored late to make it a one-score game, but Oklahoma holds on. I've got the Sooners 17-10.
Awesome. I got them 24, I think 17. But
okay.
I just have like a special teams big play or something. I just feel like hopefully one for Oklahoma, but
you never know. In rivalry games, you never know. And I tell you, it kind of worries me because one of the best gamblers I've ever seen on sports gave me some advice one time, and I'm going against it. He said, when two great defenses play each other, take the over. When two great offenses play each other, take the under, which I thought he was crazy at the time. But if you run the math out on it, he's been right more than he's been wrong. But I think this one, I just think it's going to be low scoring, man.
Gotcha. Hey, if you don't mind, I just want to run a couple of the biggest games by you and get your just quick thoughts, maybe a score and just a couple thoughts if you want. I don't want to keep you too much longer. But first one is obviously the Indiana at Oregon. Indiana looks, Fernando Mendoza looks legit.
Yeah.
I mean, so does Dante Moore at Oregon. And I mean, how do you see this game going? What's kind of your thoughts on that game?
Well, the thing I love about Cignetti's teams is they don't beat themselves. They're very balanced. They're very efficient in what they do. They know their identity. I think this Indiana team is a lot better than the one from last year, and that's saying something. But I tell you, I doubted Oregon's front seven on defense against the run, and what they showed me against Penn State. Everybody talks about the freshmen on offense, and I get it. And then obviously, Dante Moore and what he's doing. But I was so impressed with the front seven defensively after the way I've watched them play. Like, go back and watch the Northwestern game against Oregon, then go watch the Penn State game against Oregon. Is like two different, sets of humans walked out in those games. I do like Indiana to cover this, but I think Oregon does win, which, again, I think this Indiana team can really do some damage in the playoff. Would not shock me if they hosted a game, even after losing this one, which I think they will. This Oregon team, just Dan Lanning, man, he does an amazing job of getting those guys ready to play and motivating them, and then them playing under control, because there's been guys that are great motivators, but your guys are so motivated to go out there and they just everything's just going crazy. It's like everything's like a car crash. It's called controlled aggression, and I think Dan does a really good job of that. So I like Oregon to win that game, but Indiana to cover the 7.5.
Awesome. All right, next one, Alabama, Missouri. There's Missouri may not play an away game this year, I guess. I mean,
Look,
I think it's a team that has a good pulse. How do you see that one?
Well, on our prediction show on Wednesday, you can go check that out on Crain and Company. I felt like I kind of had to save the graphic because everybody picked Bama. So I did pick Missouri, even though I picked Bama to win the national championship before the season, which that pick's looking a lot better now than it did after week 1, I will say. It's just something about this Missouri team and the way Bo Prabula has been able to prove that he can beat you from the pocket. And then I think Ahmad Hardy is the best running back in the country. You know what Drink and them do with outside zone it is dirty, and outside zone can hit in so many places. That's what makes it dangerous. You know, a lot of people think the zone's meant to cut back, and it is. Even outside zone. So, I look at what that means for play action, and can Alabama continue to play disciplined on the road? That was the thing I think that stood out the most against Georgia, was that they didn't hurt themselves. It was actually Georgia who hurt themselves from a penalty standpoint. Something about this Missouri team, man. I think they feel disrespected because this game's at 11. They got this game at 11, and they got to go play Auburn at night the next week on the road. I got Missouri 30-27 in this one, man.
Yeah, I like Missouri too. I don't know. I keep going back and forth. Tell me from your perspective. You obviously know a lot more about it than I do. I look at like the average defenses they played, and they're not good. They're not like some great defense, but I still look at them and I see them being good.
Well, you can just, again, and obviously the competition you play matters. I'm not discounting that. But, you watch this stuff long enough, you can tell when you watch somebody or watch a team really if they're good or not. And what I like about Missouri is it's all complimentary. And we knew the defense was going to be pretty solid. Like, that was something we knew coming into this year. Outside of early against Kansas, I think they were a little bit over emotional. But when I watch this Missouri offense play, they can beat you in so many ways, and their team speed, not just Coleman. They've got some other guys that can do some things. But their team speed is really good. I think they can win a rock fight. I think they can win a track meet, and at home, again, I feel like they feel disrespected, and this is going to be a tough test for Bama. It's going to be a really tough test.
Yeah. Yep. Awesome. Well, Jake, man, I thank you very much for joining. Tell everyone where they can find your content and kind of just the Dailywire and all that.
Yeah, if you listen, I mean, we're on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Again, we're on YouTube as well. So just go to Crain and Company, Crain and Company. We're easy to find. We put out a ton of content. We're going to have instant reactions right after the game, including the Red River Shootout. We got a full preview too as well that you're going to want to check out on the YouTube channel. So yeah, man, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. Thanks for hopping on. Sorry to, for those who don't know, I had to message him like 20 times on Twitter because I kept having to change the time of when I need.
Look, man, it's again being able to win in multiple ways, multiple time frames. I'm trying to, that's what we're trying to do over here. But I appreciate it, Chad.
Yeah. All right, you guys rock. Make sure to catch our show on Mondays. Tia will be back. We'll be streaming at 7. We'll have a reaction, obviously, after the OU Texas game as well. You guys have a blessed week, and we'll see you for hopefully after an Oklahoma win Saturday.
Don't let me down.